Hello, and welcome back to the Poetry Podcast with me, Lance Pearson. We come now to Keats, Shelley, and Byron. You may think I'm a bit of a vandal reading only one poem by each of them, when they all deserve a programme of their own. True enough, and we'll come to others of their poems in later programmes. But what I want to do here is look at this extraordinary firework display of young poets who briefly lit up the night sky together and then perished. Wordsworth and Coleridge were born in the 1770s. Today's selection were born in the 1790s. They were the second generation of English Romantic poets, and they picked up the radical baton. All died tragically young and away from home. The youngest of them, and first to die, was John Keats, just 200 years ago in the year when I'm recording this. To stop ourselves from getting too sad, I shall approach Keats via the recent American poet Galway Kinnell, who died in 2014, by reading part of his delightful poem, Oatmeal, which is the American for porridge. I eat oatmeal for breakfast. I make it on the hot plate and put skimmed milk on it. I eat it alone. I am aware it is not good to eat oatmeal alone. Its consistency is such that it is better for your mental health if somebody eats it with you. That is why I often think up an imaginary companion to have breakfast with. Possibly it is even worse to eat oatmeal with an imaginary companion. Nevertheless, yesterday morning I ate my oatmeal with John Keats. Keats said I was right to invite him. Due to its glutinous texture, gluey lumpishness, hint of slime, and unusual willingness to disintegrate, oatmeal must never be eaten alone. He said it is perfectly okay, however, to eat it with an imaginary companion, and he himself had enjoyed memorable porridges with Edmund Spenser and John Milton. When breakfast was over, John recited To Autumn. He recited it slowly, with much feeling, and he articulated the words lovingly, and his odd accent sounded sweet. He didn't offer the story of writing to autumn. I doubt if there is much of one. But he did say the sight of a just-harvested oat field got him started on it. And two of the lines, For summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells, and Thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours, came to him when eating oatmeal alone. Kinnell says Keats's odd accent sounded sweet. In his own day, Keats was derided as part of the Cockney school of writers. His origin was humble. His father was in charge of the stables at the Swan and Hoop Inn in London's Moorgate. He never lost his Cockney voice, so we will hear his ode to autumn with a flavour of that. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow, sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings, hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Ay, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing. And now, with treble soft, the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Keats wrote that in his prolific year, 1818 to 19, when he was just 23. He died of tuberculosis 2 years later, only 25. Just imagine what he might have written had he lived. He had met our next poet, Shelley, who invited him to Italy, and indeed Keats went there for the warmer climate in his final winter, and died in Rome, believing himself a failure, and buried at his own request in a grave that does not even give his name. Percy Bysshe Shelley came from the other side of the tracks. His father was Sir Timothy Shelley, a Whig MP. He was a born rebel, and was expelled from Oxford University for refusing to explain or withdraw his book, The Necessity of Atheism. When his first marriage collapsed, he eloped with Mary Godwin, who was shortly to write Frankenstein, and her stepsister in a triangular relationship. 4 years later they emigrated to Italy, and he would never return. His great poetic year came in 1819 to 20, the year after Keats's, when he was 27. During it he wrote our next poem, The Cloud. The contrast with Keats is striking. Keats's poetry is slow, rich, wistful, often dark and melancholy. In his most successful poems, as here, Shelley is fast-moving, light, airborne, infused with hope and aspiration. The Cloud speaks. I bring fresh showers for the thirsting flowers from the seas and the streams. I bear light shade for the leaves when laid in their noonday dreams. From my wings are shaken the dews that waken the sweet buds every one, when rocked to rest on their mother's breast as she dances about the sun. I wield the flail of the lashing hail and whiten the green plains under, and then again I dissolve it in rain and laugh as I pass in thunder. I sift the snow on the mountains below, and their great pines groan aghast, and all the night 'tis my pillow white, while I sleep in the arms of the blast. Sublime on the towers of my skyey bowers, lightning my pilot sits. In a cavern under is fettered the thunder, it struggles and howls at fits. Over earth and ocean with gentle motion this pilot is guiding me, lured by the love of the genii that move in the depths of the purple sea. Over the rills and the crags and the hills, over the lakes and the plains, wherever he dream, under mountain or stream, the spirit he loves remains. And I all the while bask in heaven's blue smile, whilst he is dissolving in rains. The sanguine sunrise, with his meteor eyes and his burning plumes outspread, leaps on the back of my sailing rack when the morning star shines dead. As on the jag of a mountain crag, which an earthquake rocks and swings, an eagle alit one moment may sit in the light of its golden wings, and when sunset may breathe from the lit sea beneath its ardours of rest and of love, and the crimson pall of eve may fall from the depth of heaven above. With wings folded I rest on mine airy nest, as still as a brooding dove. That orbed maiden, with white fire laden, whom mortals call the moon, glides glimmering o'er my fleece-like floor, by the midnight breezes strewn. And wherever the beat of her unseen feet, which only the angels hear, may have broken the woof of my tent's thin roof, the stars peep behind her and peer, and I laugh to see them whirl and flee like a swarm of golden bees when I widen the rent in my wind-built tent, till the calm rivers, lakes, and seas, like strips of the sky fallen through me on high, are each paved with the moon and these. I bind the sun's throne with a burning zone, and the moon's with a girdle of pearl. The volcanoes are dim, and the stars reel and swim when the whirlwinds my banner unfurl. From cape to cape, with a bridge-like shape, over a torrent sea, sunbeam-proof I hang, like a roof, the mountains its columns be. The triumphal arch through which I march with hurricane fire and snow, when the powers of the air are chained to my chair, is the million-coloured bow. The sphere fire above its soft colours wove, while the moist earth was laughing below. I am the daughter of earth and water, and the nursling of the sky. I pass through the pores of the oceans and shores. I change, but I cannot die, for after the rain, when with never a stain the pavilion of heaven is bare, and the winds and sunbeams with their convex gleams build up the blue dome of air, I silently laugh at my own cenotaph, and out of the caverns of rain, like a child from the womb, like a ghost from the tomb, I arise and unbuild it again. Two years later, Shelley was dead, drowned in a boating accident. The oldest of these three famous romantic poets was Lord Byron, born 4 years before Shelley. The two became friends, and for a while gathered a radical literary circle round them in Pisa. Among themselves, they regarded him as the greatest poet of the three, and he certainly had the greatest influence on the European Romantic movement. His poems, such as Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, Manfred, and Don Juan, inspired not just fellow poets, but novels, music, operas, and painting. He had a wild romantic lifestyle to match. Lady Caroline Lamb, with whom he had a brief affair, famously described him as mad, bad, and dangerous to know. And even Shelley could only try to excuse him, not deny it. Byron, he maintained, is an exceedingly interesting person, and as such it is not to be regretted that he is slave to the vilest and most vulgar prejudices, and as mad as a hatter. How remarkable, then, is one of his earliest poems, which I find supremely beautiful, and oh, so wistful. It suggests that with the right influence, the right person, he could have been so different, and he would have liked to be. It has no separate title, but is known by its opening words. She walks in beauty, like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek, and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. Byron died 2 years after Shelley, aged 36. He had begun to move away from poetry, believing he should pursue political action. He funded Byron's Brigade to inspire the Greeks to rebel against their Turkish overlords. But before he could fight himself, he died of fever. Those are the 3 great luminaries of the Romantic poets, round 2. But I think there is a 4th who should join them, John Clare. I'm pleased he is finally receiving the recognition he deserves. He never left England like the others, and he was not a political figure. But he was the same age, born in 1793, 1 year after Shelley, 2 before Keats. He lived longer than they did, but his glittering popularity as a poet came in 1820 and 21, just when our last 3 poems were in vogue. When he was 44, he was committed to asylums as insane for the rest of his life. But as a rural farm labourer in Northamptonshire, he wrote magnificent nature poetry with the same melancholy undertone as Keats. I'm finishing with his poem Decay, which brings us back full circle to autumn. Amidst the happiest joy, a shade of grief will come. Its mark, in summertime, a leaf tinged with the autumn's visible decay, as pining to forgetfulness away. Ay, blank forgetfulness, that coldest lot, to be and to have been, and then be not. In beauty's self, love's essence, heaven's prime, meet for eternity in joys sublime, earth's most divinest, is a mortal thing, and nurses time's sick autumn for its spring, and fades till wonder knows it not, and admiration hath all praise forgot. Coldly forsaking an unheeding past, to fade and fall and die, like common things at last. Such sadness, such beauty. That's all for now, folks. Next time, we shall leave the 19th century behind for the 20th and meet another remarkable confluence of poets on the brink of the First World War.